It's 3 a.m. and you are wide awake, replaying every memory, and you can still hear their voice saying that you were never there for me. And your heart sinks because maybe they're right. But what if the guilt that you've been carrying isn't necessarily the truth and really rather just a story that shame keeps whispering? I've been there and I want to help you separate what's yours to carry from what's not. Because when you stop internalizing blame, you can finally reclaim some peace. And that's when you, my friend, can start healing again. Number one is recognizing the blame loop, because it really is a loop. It's a cycle. We've talked a lot about cycles, and in the blame cycle, the blame loop, it feels so powerful for the person giving it. If you're blaming someone, it sounds and it feels like there's so much power there. But on the other side of it, the receiving end is paralyzing, right? So when your adult child is blaming you for something, it often comes from their need to make sense of some pain that they have not processed. And it's so much easier to point outward than to look inward. And I think we can all agree to that. But when you accept that blame without discernment, when you accept it, you're stepping into this loop of shame, this cycle of shame that never ends, which is why you're waking up at 3 a.m. and ruminating. So I want to give you an example. Like if your daughter or your son said, you ruined my life. What do we want to do? We want to fix it. We want to explain it. We want to earn back the love. But then when you realize later that her words were really about the pain that she didn't even know how to hold, and you were a safe person to just let it go at. God never called us to carry every wound our children projects onto us, or even every wound that they receive. This is their journey. So I want you to recognize when you're absorbing someone else's emotions as your own. And as moms, we do it a lot. But awareness will help you break that loop before it drains you. And some of you are already feeling drained, and I know that feeling very well. Number two is reframing the story that you tell yourself. We're always worried about the story and correcting ourselves and reframing of how we could maybe better describe something to our son or daughter. But what about the story that you tell yourself? That is equally, if not more important. Guilt will convince you that motherhood was one big mistake. I've heard moms say, I wish I never would have had kids. And I know they don't mean it. They're completely speaking out of their pain. But reframing this is not about, pretending everything was perfect or denying your faults. It's about putting some truth back into where shame can rewrite your story, right? Pulling that shame out, putting truth in where shame has rewritten your story, and it's time to pull that out. So instead of saying, I failed at this, you could say, I did my best with what I knew then, and I'm still learning. Because guess what, my friends? This is your first time here too. This is your first time being a mom. When you were raising your oldest, that was your first time. But that one sentence of, what? I did the best I could with what I knew and what I had back then, and I'm still learning. That can loosen years of shame for yourself. So when I stopped defending myself and started defining who Sally was through God's truth, that's when I found peace. And that's the peace that I tell my clients all the time. It's like, I had the peace that surpasses all understanding. And at the time, in the moment, I didn't know where it came from. It made no sense to me because I had spent years in turmoil and my situation hadn't changed, but I was changing, right? So that's the beauty of all of this. So maybe an exercise for you in the regards to this could be writing down every accusation that you've internalized, and maybe write down really what's true now. Maybe you were controlling. Maybe you could say that you were afraid and you wanted to protect. What you and your child consider controlling might be two different things. It was also our job to keep them safe. So we had to protect them from certain things. In their mind, it may have been controlling, but that's their perception. And that is what it is. So just remember, God's grace doesn't erase the past, it redeems it. It's better than if it never happened. So he's going to use your mistakes to teach you some wisdom and strength, which is amazing. So if this is hitting home for you, I would love to hear from you. I do offer a heart-to-heart consultation. It's for moms who are ready to stop living under this false guilt and moms who are ready to walk this situation out with guidance. And if so, if that's you and you're ready for that and to consider that, then I invite you to this heart-to-heart consultation. It's a faith-integrated conversation, and we will look at what kind of support could finally bring you some peace and healing that you've been praying for, because you do not have to go through this alone. So if that's you, you can click the link in the show notes or description below. Number 3 is set some faith-filled boundaries. Set those boundaries with your guilt, right? So you can love your child so deeply and still refuse to be their punching bag, emotional punching bag. That's not rejection, that's maturity. And boundaries are almost, you could say, like a declaration of peace for yourself, not punishment, but it's a declaration of peace saying, you know what, I love you enough to stay healthy while you figure things out. You do not have to receive that from them or anyone else. If every conversation with them turns into blame, maybe you're just saying, you know what, I'm not going to discuss this with you right now. I want us to talk when it's safe for both of us. And then you need to walk away without guilt. And this takes practice. This takes some practice. You know, guilt will tell you that you're abandoning them. The little whisper in your head, the enemy in your mind is saying, oh, you're abandoning them, you're walking away. But your wisdom will eventually tell you that you're making some space and place for healing in your own life, which is exactly what you need. The rest will come. But we need to get off this loop. We need to get out of this cycle. And lastly, number 4 is rebuild your identity and hope. So many of my clients tell me, I was a mom. I don't know what I am anymore. And I messed that up. And that's what estrangement, that's the lie. Estrangement strips away how you see yourself. And then you start believing, well, if my child doesn't love me, then I must not be lovable. But your identity was never meant to be built on someone else's approval. It's built on who God says you are, first and foremost. But then we have to believe it. And this is where you can discover the you that existed before motherhood was even a thing. So maybe start journaling. Journal what brings you joy. Reconnect with some friends. Serve other people. Get out, move your body, exercise. Exercise your mind and your body. So just remember, you're not the villain in this story. I want you to look at yourself as you're not a victim, you're not a villain, but you're a mom, a woman who's being refined. And every time that you choose peace over panic, faith over fear, you get to rebuild your life one step at a time. So again, I just want to remind you that you are not the villain, no matter what you've done or didn't do. Some of you have a list of things that you wish you could take back. It doesn't mean this story can't be redeemed. So I hope this helps you today, and I will see you in the next episode. God bless.